Okay, so next up we have Team Zura.
What if you could say with absolute certainty that the shoes you're wearing were sourced sustainably and ethically, without the use of child labor or animal abuse? This is exactly what Emma is attempting to accomplish, and that, paired with their superior design and safety, is what has allowed them to gain a secure footing in the European safety footwear market. Hi, my name is Miranda Plunkett, and these are my colleagues.
Trinity Cabrera,
Ashley Davis,
and Glenn Klinger.
We're Team Zura, and we're here today to present to you our analysis on Emma safety footwear, Closing the Loop. Let's begin with the product life cycle of an Emma shoe. Sourcing begins in Brazil, China, Italy, and India, after which those raw materials are transported to Emma's production facility in the Netherlands. After the products are completed, they are then shipped to Emma's dealer relationships, and then after that, shipped to their end consumers. After the shoes have reached their useful product life cycle, they are entered into Emma's value retention program, where they are able to be broken down into their components and reused into other objects. Emma refers to this cradle-to-cradle design as closing the product loop, or a circular design. Next, my colleague Ashley will go over an industry analysis.
Thank you, Miranda, for explaining that process. As mentioned in the case, the global safety shoe market had a forecasted compound annual growth rate of 5.28%. Due to COVID-19 complications, this number has decreased to 3% because of COVID that caused slow growth throughout the market. In 2024, the forecasted worth of the market will be 767.5 million euros, and the market is currently fragmented. I will pass it back to my colleague Miranda to now discuss our strategic issues.
Thank you for that overview, Ashley. Our team has identified two key strategic issues that Emma must address before moving forward. The first, how to best utilize being acquired by the Holterfers Group. This recent 2020 acquisition offers opportunities for Emma to further expand into the European market and can serve as a key advantage in capturing market share. The second, how to communicate the value of a circular shoe to Emma's end users. Under their current business model, Emma has trouble connecting with and communicating to their end users. Convincing end users of the value of a circular product is essential in driving customer value. Next, my colleague Kierna will do a SWOT analysis.
Thank you, Miranda. Starting off with our strengths, I'd like to talk about our premium brand. We're not your typical safety shoe brand, but instead we offer sustainability in our value and in our products, as well with eliminating child labor. This ties into our unique market positioning. As we are the #3 market leader in the Netherlands, we bring customer value through ensuring safety. This ties together into our high staffing policy. We focus on we ensure positions for our people that are with disabilities, as well as those that are more vulnerable to the market. Moving on to our weaknesses, we are struggling to fix the circular supply chain as we want to complete that circle and generating full revenue for our core business model, in which we're also struggling with. Relationships with our end consumers are also something we want to build upon due to our dealers. Let's now move on to the opportunities. Opportunities being expanding sustainability. There's always improvement for sustainability and to continue our growth into that. There's no threat of a substitution within the safety shoe market, as well as increasing our presence, mostly throughout Europe. Moving on to our threats, there's always going to be competition. In this case, our major competitors being Beta and Honeywell. These are larger sectors with similar product strategies and pricing strategies. COVID-19 has also had a huge impact, especially within the supply chain disruptions. As well with our conservative sector, this limits our opportunities to make changes when people may be reluctant to that. So how are we strategically capable? Our quality. A consumer, when purchasing something, they purchase it more on their meaning. Not exactly always on what the product does or has to offer them, what it identifies them as. Our ISO certification is also we are the only Dutch company to receive that, tying together with our circular shoe model, which makes us stand out. I will now be passing it back to Miranda, who will be discussing the market analysis.
Thank you for that, Kirna. As you can see, the global safety shoes market is divided into 6 industries as end consumers, with construction in the lead. A competitive analysis shows us that although Emma does have a strong hold within the European market, there's certainly room for growth. Competitors such as Honeywell do have greater sales and revenue, which is partially due to the fact that they offer products beyond the realm of just safety shoes. But you can also see that Emma has unique market offerings, particularly with our sustainability approach. We offer products made from different types of materials, such as moving away from PVC and towards rubber TPU. Next, I'll begin our direction. We strongly believe that in conjunction with Emma's core values, closing the loop is an essential next step for Emma. We also believe that choosing suppliers that are aligned with our values and consistency is vital moving forward, since sustainable production often requires some flexibility from our producers. Alongside this, we believe that in this fragmented and conservative market, dealers provide access, agility, and stability, 3 things that are absolutely essential for Emma in capturing greater market share. Lastly, we believe that materials repurposing and offering the market with the very first fully circular shoe offers extremely lucrative options for Emma going forward. Next, my colleague Glenn will continue with our direction.
Thanks, Miranda. So first, we're looking at sustainable footwear here. So this means that our goals looking forward as being a sustainable company, we want our suppliers to be sustainable as well. So whether this be, we want their suppliers to be consistent with us when it comes to their processes, and we want them to provide a safe work environment just as we do for our employees. Our next goal is in the industry and innovation. As you know, we have developed the Emma has developed the circular shoe model. We want to keep going forward with this and refine the process that lets it be, or refining it for being more efficient and cost effective. Next, we have reducing inequality. So as you know, Emma's workforce is comprised of 70% of socially disadvantaged people. So we see that as a real opportunity that Emma can take advantage of, reducing inequality and providing a space for these people. And lastly, responsible consumption. So our circular shoe process kind of shows our sustainability, and we want to expand on that by developing a return or expanding our return logistics. So this deals with when the consumer has their product, after they're worn out or finished with it, it goes back to us so that we can deconstruct it and use the materials for further. So next, we're going to get into the cycle. So the circular shoe process has 5 different components, being leather, polyurethane, insoles, steel, and microfibers. So some key takeaways from this is the leather and steel we get from suppliers, and it is not fully renewable yet. So as you can see from the polyurethane, oil is still used in that production. We want to move towards focusing on more renewable aspects of that. So next, I'm going to leave it to my colleague Ashley to start the strategy.
Thank you for that explanation, Glenn. We would like to continue what Emma already has in place by continuing our push and pull strategy as well as our track and trace system and our current acquisition with Holtefors Group. Starting off with the push and pull, the push will allow us to push our product to dealers and allow them to sell out the product for us while allowing us to pull back feedback from our customers. The track and trace strategy allows us to track materials as they go through the production process and the return logistics, and it is used throughout our whole cycle. We will also be able to track and trace the materials to ensure that they are produced sustainably. Continuing on with our current acquisition, there are many reasons and benefits for this acquisition. The first reason being our common goal of sustainability, as well as allowing Emma to provide one sole factory for Holtefors to produce their products, as well as consolidating their presence. The benefits also include product variation as well as reaching out to our consumers and creating relationships with them for our feedback. And this also gives us the opportunity to have more sellers. I will now pass it back to Glenn to describe our execution.
Thanks, Ashley. So starting our execution, so we recommend that Emma should expand into more of Europe through their dealers. We want to create a partnering program with our dealers so to have a leasing to the customer. So how that would work is we would partner with a dealer starting in the Netherlands, Belgium, the Benelux region, and we want to create a leasing program where when our product is sold to the customer, when they bring it back after 10 to 14 months, the dealer will then accept it and we'll have that shipped back to or transferred back to our manufacturing space to take it apart and use those materials again in the production process. We went with this solution because the dealers are our supply or are our backbone of our sales network. So we don't want to just cut out the middleman. As we know, the industry is very conservative and is not willing to change. This has been the model, so we want to work within it. So by creating this leasing program, we'll better be able to get feedback from our end consumer or end customers and our stakeholders in general, whether that be our suppliers or even the dealers in this case. This also helps us reaching out to SMEs and also small mom and pop shops in Europe who rely on our products through our dealers. This also will retain our large portion of revenue from these companies as well. It also incentivizes used shoes to be returned. So once the consumer's done, as the dealer takes it, we'll be able to better use that recycled material. So moving on, we did a break-even analysis to take a look at the cost for this. So we wanted to take a look at our return logistics and economic feasibility. So we already used 10% of our materials is already from the recycled process. And we took the numbers from the provided in the case and made a few assumptions that we would need around 14,500 units to start making a profit. In that calculation is the cost of making the product, the cost of breaking it down after we get it back from the dealer as well. And just to reiterate, return logistics would be once the customer is done, they drop it off at the dealer or they send it out and they get us back to our manufacturing facility. So looking forward here, we wanted to implement or have a note on change management. So we want our company and our suppliers to focus on a transformational change. So basically we want to modify our structure and processes so that they're more aligned with our goals, being eco-friendly and being sustainable. So we want that, and our end goal is to have that consistent with our suppliers and our organizations to create an eco-friendly culture. Now, a word on recycling and reusing waste to save cost. We do have some of our stakeholder recommendations, specifically from our suppliers. First, from Hayu, they are our microfiber supplier. They use about 20% of wasted microfibers in their production again. So they don't have to keep making more. We want to look to expand that number to save costs on that input. Also, we have Viposa here. They are a leather supplier. They use a lot of water. They're situated in Brazil. They use a lot of water to make the tannins. And a lot of that water, after completed, is considered wastewater. They do have the technology and ability to implement a system to reuse that water. However, they do need a certification from the Brazilian government and have help navigating the laws to implement that. So next, I'll leave it off to my colleague Miranda to finish the life cycle.
Thank you. As Glenn went over, the return logistics process of recycling these materials can be extremely lengthy and expensive. This is why we decided to use our dealers as a partner in this process, because we can capitalize on their established relationship with the end consumers. This would allow us to accept more units from them and not only break even, but create a profit from this recycling initiative. To conclude, we believe the best way to utilize this acquisition with Hultefers Group is to gain access to the European market via their relationships with established dealers. We believe that this is the best way to capitalize on this acquisition because they're established. If we gain access to their dealers, we also gain access to their end consumers. Additionally, the best way to communicate the value of a circular shoe is through our return logistics program. We believe that by partnering with our dealers in this process, we will be able to generate both brand and product awareness in these end consumers throughout Europe and the Benelux region. In summary, Emma's aims is to exceed relevant standards, not only in safety and production, but in sustainability as well. In that respect, they are committed to making the best product that they can. We applaud Emma's efforts towards sustainability, and we intend to continue with that in the future. We also believe that our solution is the best way for them to capture further market share by working within the existing system and dealer relationships. Thank you for listening to our presentation today. We are Team Zura.
So we will be starting our questions and answers.
Well, great presentation. You guys really, you really presented a lot. That's awesome. I got a lot to dive into, just to recommend you on and also to ask these questions. One stat that you put that I was blown away is the growth rate of 5.28%, and then with COVID it was 3%. Are there any numbers out there of when it will be back? You know, like towards the 5.8 or 5.69%
So
rate?
as of now, it is continuing to move at 3% because of, as you mentioned, COVID. The forecasted worth of the market is 767.5 million euros. So throughout those years up until 2024, it will go up to that amount. I'm not exactly sure what percentage that is. I will have to look that up.
And is that following the market share of the, I believe it was construction was #1 as far as percentage of sales
Yes.
of Emma? And so that was awesome. I just thought maybe you had that beyond, you had the magic answers beyond that. But thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, good presentation. The gentleman on the left, my left, made 2 comments. Would you mind expanding on that? You said reducing inequality. How are you going to do that? And you said focus on renewable aspects. How are you going to do that? How do you recommend Emma does that, I should say?
So to focus on renewable aspects, we want to take a look into like what it takes to make our closed-end shoe that is we've deemed sustainable. So in our solution, we kind of focused on what it would look like recycling those materials. So those materials that we get from recycling would be used in other products, or we even outsource some of those to be used in other products, like would be like chair making or a few other examples that we outsource the materials to. And I'm sorry, I forgot. Can you repeat your first question?
Yeah, the first one was, well, let's finish that. So you're saying that program where it gets recycled to the dealers. That's your recommendation for focus on renewable aspects. Is that right?
Yeah, we want to focus on like recycling or like having renewable by recycling those materials from our products when we get them back from the end consumer, and like using those materials in further production of other products or in other shoes.
Yes, absolutely. Going off of what he said, our recommendation is that via this return logistics program, we might be able to increase the percentage of our product that is made from recycled materials. At the moment, there's only 20% of the upper that is made from recycled materials, and some R&D would have to be put into increasing that because obviously our quality is also a key concern. But we would like to look into using more recycled components and also selling the additional recycled components to other places, like he mentioned, chairs and shingles.
And then the second question was, or the first question was reducing inequality of the you said, I think the number was 70% of the workforce is?
Yeah, so when we were researching, we came across this as 70% of the workforce at Emma is considered socially disadvantaged, and we wanted to like align our goals with, I think it is the UN sustainability goals, focuses on reducing inequality. So we wanted to continue in that direction where we hire people that are socially disadvantaged, but allowing them to, reduce that gap of that where they might not have another place.
So you're saying, of the 150 employees of Emma, or are you talking about the supply chain, the suppliers? Where's that inequality? Is it at Emma, or is it amongst the?
It's in like more like a Europe-wide kind of. This was off of the just like in general of reducing inequality among kind of like in society, I guess you could say, or kind of like in general, like we can help move towards that direction. Is kind of what the focus was.
You're talking about so Europe in general.
Europe in general. Sorry, yeah, this isn't just for well, it's within the Emma's company, but.
Yeah, tying that back into the reason Emma was created to help disenfranchise coal miners that have been injured. We wanted to sort of continue with that. Many of Emma's products, I believe about 20% of their revenue, is generated from custom and orthopedic shoes, which allow them to not only facilitate working for disadvantaged people, but also allows our own employees to reap the benefits of that.
You spoke about expanding your business with dealers. Right now, what percentage is your dealers versus your high volume clients or accounts?
In the case, what we found, or kind of what we went off of, is that Emma sells to dealers regardless of the volume. So we couldn't really find any specific numbers on what dealers have higher volumes than others. So we kind of went with an approach of selling generally to dealers.
And then with that push strategy with the dealers, what information are you getting of your customers? Now, what's the strategy? Actually, what's the strategy on that one, and what's the strategy on still working on the large, your large clients that are not dealers?
So you said, to reiterate your question, what information we would get from consumers with the push-pull strategy?
Yeah, that you're not currently getting right now.
We would just get their feedback due to the 10 to 14 month lifespan, like how we can improve, where we can improve in the shoe, what new things we can implement, and how to make the shoes more sustainable. Basically asking them what they would recommend, because everyone always wants a longer lasting shoe, so we would take that feedback and then implement it to our current products to see what we can do better and improve.
Additionally, with partnering with our dealers in this return logistics program, we hope to incentivize them even more to get return feedback from end consumers. As stated in the beginning, right now there's a disconnect between Emma and their end consumers because of the dealers. So we were hoping to slightly bridge that gap through using the dealers as partnerships in our return logistics program.
And I think it's a good, unique model, is that basically you could be turning, yourself into a tier 2 supplier, a supplier for your supplier by giving, returning the recycled goods. So I think that's a good model. So, thanks.
Thank you.
So can you go back to the slide that you used for the competitor analysis? In my opinion, this is the best slide that I've seen so far. But I felt like there were some holes in terms of, what you've been able to share out of this. I mean, Caterpillar, which is a well-known global brand, is only selling, 4.3 million units, which is shocking. Obviously, the elephant in the room is Honeywell, but tell me what you think, when you look at this slide, what can you, because competition is really important to this case. What can you pull out of this, and what would you use out of this information for your strategy?
So I'll touch on it first here. So what we really wanted to pull out of this is kind of a focus on our materials here, like we're kind of unique in the aspect that we put our materials through a rigorous test of the ABC-X method, so A being the most optimal, X being completely restricted off the board, we can't use it. We wanted to see like what kind of niche we could fulfill. Like we can't go up against Honeywell in sheer amounts of like producing or like, volume of units, but we can provide a sustainable option that uses, a good example would be instead of like plastics or even like PVC for like the steel toe and everything, we use rubber, TPU, which is more renewable and sustainable. So from this chart, we wanted to illustrate how we fulfill a niche and like more of like we can't really go up against in sheer amounts of like production of like a Honeywell.
Yes, and going off of that, in the product section, we did research, especially on Caterpillar. I know you mentioned that. What I found interesting about them was how they had three different types, or they have like several different types of shoes, including like Flexion, S-Curve, and they all have different, I guess, advantages. And with Emma, like Glenn repeated, he said that we're very sustainable. So there's a big difference. We want the consumer to actually see the meaning. Like, oh, if I'm environmentally friendly, like I'm gonna stand with the environment wearing an Emma safety shoe. So it's all about the value, what we bring to our consumer.
So I thought your presentation was well put together. I did have a hard time seeing the connection to the challenges of the strategy. We spent a lot of time asking you questions about strategy, which should have been in the presentation. And so, like the gentleman on the left, I'm sorry, your name is escaping me, he would make a statement, but there wasn't much follow through on it. So there was, and that's an example of not just him, but the rest of the presenters. So I had a hard time figuring out what the actual strategy was. The partnership with the dealers was what I remember the most. There was a comment that you made about increased profit or increased revenues. I can't remember who said it, but there was no slide, there was no statistic behind that. So I'm having a hard time understanding when you make comments and there's not a follow-up to it.
Any other things?
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. I'm lost. Can you repeat that again? I'm sorry.
If you want to answer my question, I probably phrase it as a question. It should have been a question. It was an example of the statistic behind your comment about increase in revenues, increase in profits as a result of the increase in recycling.
In our return logistics program, as we mentioned, we not only use some of those recycled components in production of our own shoes, but we also sell those recycled components to an FBB identified party who would be able to use them properly. So our break-even analysis came from the profits that we would generate from selling those recycled materials to other companies.
Got it. So the comment earlier was connected to this slide. Thank you for clarifying. We're way over time. Sorry about that.
I like the way that you guys attempted to differentiate the MSU as a premium product. I like that slide. It was powerful. And also the break-even slide. Great.
Thank you.